Agrippa's Things of the Moon. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight, and we continue our reading of Agrippa. By the way, on my Facebook, I now have a pinned comment, and the pinned comment on my Facebook has a link to my YouTube channel, to my Agrippa playlist. So my Agrippa playlist. So you could go back to these videos. These videos are for reference. So at any time, you could go back to the stuff of the sun or solar things in Agrippa or mercurial or jovial or saturnine. You can go back to that video and review Agrippa with me. So we're working our way through the 16th century classical texts on magic. We're working our way through Agrippa. Agrippa takes us from the beginning, assuming we know nothing, takes us from the beginning and then outlines step by step how magic works from the 16th century learned ceremonial magic type of perspective. And also, in the pinned comment on my Facebook, I have my Shem Angel videos. They're now 77. There are more. There's probably like 100 Shem Angel videos by now. I need to add some like older ones to my Shem Angel playlist, but I'm up to 77 videos with the Shem Angels in the playlist. So you could always go back to a certain angel or a certain chapter and review. So today we are looking at what things are lunary or under the power of the moon. So this is chapter 24 of book 1 of Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. We've made it in these videos all the way to chapter 24. And we've hit every chapter up until now. So chapter 24. What things are lunary or under the power of the moon? These things are lunary. Amongst elements, it always begins with the elements. Amongst elements, the earth, then the water, as well as that of the sea. So amongst elements, the earth and water. So earth and water, those two elements are governed by the moon in Agrippa. So amongst elements, the earth, then the water, as well as that of the sea, as of the rivers. So the moon governs earth, water, the sea, rivers. So rivers, the ocean, all things associated with water. Amongst elements, the earth, then the water, as well as that of the sea, as of rivers and all moist things, as the moisture of trees, so like the leaves for Agrippa are associated with the moon. Leaves have the moisture of the plant. And all moist things as the moisture of trees and animals, especially they which are white. So the moon governs earth and water, and the ocean and rivers, creeks, ponds, anywhere you see water. Also the moisture of trees. So like the leaves, the moisture of trees, and the moisture of animals. So spit, phlegm. So amongst elements, the earth and the water, as well as that of the sea, as of the rivers and all moist things, as the moisture of trees and animals, especially they which are white, as the whites of eggs. So the whites of eggs are associated with Agrippa. And it's interesting because the yolk he associates with Jupiter, but the whites of the eggs are of the moon. The whites of eggs, fat, sweat, phlegm, and the superfluities of bodies, amongst tastes, salt and insipid. So Agrippa also describes different tastes or flavors associated with the planets. For Agrippa, of the moon, the tastes or flavors associated with the moon are saltiness, and insipid means without flavor, bland, no flavor. So even no flavor or blandness, which is what insipid means, is considered of the moon. So among taste, salt, and insipid. Amongst metals, silver. Amongst metals, Agrippa lists silver as of the moon. Amongst stones, crystal, the silver marcasite. So marcasite is the pale version of fool's gold, iron pyrite. So fool's gold, the golden colored variety, is associated with the sun, but the pale or silver colored fool's gold, the paler variety, is called marcasite. So silver marcasite, and we could even look at the footnote here. It says here, silver marcasite, iron pyrites, or fool's gold, a very shiny cubic crystal used for jewelry and in ancient times the making of mirrors. The pale variety is called marcasite. So it was used in ancient times to make mirrors. So marcasite is the pale form of fool's gold, the silvery colored one. Amongst stones, crystal. So crystals, the silver marcasite, and all those stones which are white and green. So for Agrippa, if you see a stone that has a mixture of white and green, that's lunar for Agrippa. Amongst stones, the crystal, the silver marcasite, and all those stones that are white and green. Also the stone selenite. Selenite. The word selenite comes from the moon. The stone selenite. And here Agrippa is actually quoting Pliny the Elder in the 1st century. Once again, Agrippa is pouring through the classical, like, Greco-Roman material that he had at his disposal in the Renaissance. So what he says here, also the stone selenite, lunary, shining from a white body, with a yellow brightness, imitating the motion of the moon, having in it the figure of the moon, which daily increaseth or decreaseth as doth the moon. Now, if we go to the footnote here, that's exactly what Pliny the Elder said in the 1st century. So, reading Pliny the Elder, he wrote in the 1st century. He died in 79 AD, or CE, from the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which destroyed Pompeii. But Pliny the Elder wrote Historia Naturalis, or Natural History, which was like the World Book Encyclopedia that continued to be used throughout the Middle Ages and Renaissance. So now we're quoting Pliny the Elder. Selenite, moonstone. Selenite is white and transparent, with a reflected color like that of honey. It has a figure within it like that of the moon, and reflects the face of that luminary. If what we are told is true, according to its phases day by day, whether of the wane or whether of the increase. So Pliny the Elder in the 1st century, this is part of the lore. We have the mythology of stones, plants, and animals. So it's like a mythology of plants and stones. We know that selenite does not really alter itself with the waxing or waning of the moon. But Agrippa's quoting Pliny the Elder there. So Agrippa says, amongst stones, crystal, the silver marcasite, which is the pale variety of fool's gold, all those stones which are white and green. Also the stone selenite, lunary, shining from a white body, with a yellow brightness, imitating the motion of the moon, having in it the figure of the moon, which daily increaseth or decreaseth, as doth the moon. Also pearls, which are generated in shells of fishes. So pearls. For Agrippa, pearls would be lunar. Think of their color, and also they come from under the ocean. Pearls. which are generated in shells of fishes from the droppings of water. Also the beryl. So beryl, B-E-R-Y-L, also the beryl. Amongst plants and trees, these are lunary, as the selenotropion. So selenotropes are plants. There are many different forms of selenotropes. They follow the moon. So selenotrope, Selena means Selene, the goddess of the moon, and tropos means to follow. So selenotropes will literally, they'll open their flowers with the moon, and a lot of these flowers are white. It's really interesting, but selenotropes will follow the moon. So, okay. All right. So, amongst plants and trees, these are lunary, as the selenotrope. Hold on just a second. Hold on. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. So, selenotropion. Amongst plants and trees, these are lunary, as the selenotropion, which turns toward the moon, as doth the heliotropion towards the sun, and the palm tree. He lists the palm tree. And the palm tree sends forth a bow at every rising of the moon. Hyssop, which is not the same thing as the biblical hyssop, but that's another conversation, really. Hyssop. So hyssop and rosemary. Hyssop. A lot of people use hyssop. Hyssop and rosemary is lunar. Agnus castus and the olive tree are lunar. Also the herb chinosta. And I don't know what chinosta is. Apparently the footnote doesn't know either. Which increaseth and decreaseth with the moon, in substance and number of leaves, not only in sap and virtue. So Agrippa is saying here that the sap and virtue of all the plants increases or decreases with the moon. So, which increaseth or decreaseth with the moon, in substance and number of leaves, not only in sap and virtue, which indeed is in some sort common to all plants, except onions, which are under the influence of Mars, which have contrary properties. So we're in the chapter of things under the moon, but Agrippa actually lists onions as ruled by Mars. So it's interesting, onions for Agrippa are martial, they're of Mars. So lunar animals, such as delight to be in man's company, such as do naturally excel in love or hatred, as all kinds of dogs. So dogs have this emotional intelligence. So lunary animals, such as delight to be in man's company, and such as do naturally excel in love or hatred, as all kinds of dogs. And dogs were sacred to Hecate as well. The chameleon also is lunary, which always assumes a color, the chameleon, which always assumes a color according to the variety of the color of the objects, as the moon changeth her nature according to the variety of the sign which it is found in. So the chameleon, as it touches something, it changes color. It's said to be lunar, in the same way that the moon changes, the lunar properties change depending on what sign it's in. So with animals, lunary also are swine. So pigs and Agrippa are associated with the moon. So pigs. Lunary also are swine or pigs. Hinds. What is a hind? A hind is a female deer. So we can think of like Artemis. So hinds, where Agrippa says hinds, he's referring to female deer. It's important to understand what Agrippa is really talking about. Otherwise, we're only getting bits and pieces of the information. Lunary also are swine or pigs, hinds, which are female deer, goats, and all manner whatsoever that observe and imitate the motion of the moon. Now, here, Agrippa is going to say the baboon, which is interesting because Horapollo in the 5th century said the same thing about the baboon, as the footnote shows. As the baboon and panther, which is said to have a spot on her shoulder like the moon, increasing into a roundness and having horns that bend inwards. So that's interesting. Again, we're getting into some of the mythical, this is kind of animal, plant, and stone mythology. But let's take a look at this footnote here. The baboon. This is quoting from Horapollo in the 5th century. What does Horapollo say about the baboon in the 5th century? We're looking at a footnote. So Agrippa is carrying on magical lore and knowledge from late antiquity. So this is now the footnote quoting Horapollo, who lived in the 5th century. The baboon, and they symbolize the moon by it because the animal has a kind of sympathy with it and its conjunction with the god. For at the exact instant of the conjunction of the moon with the sun, that's the new moon, when the moon becomes unilluminated, then the male cynocephalus, which is the baboon, neither sees nor eats, but is bowed down to the earth with grief, as if lamenting the ravishment of the moon. And the female also, in addition to its being unable to see and being afflicted in the same manner as the male, emits blood from her genitals. Hence, even to this day, cynocephali, or baboons, are brought up on the temples. Baboons in the temples. In order that from them may be ascertained the exact instant of the conjunction of the sun and moon. So that's quoting from Horapollo in the 5th century. Next he says the panther. Agrippa, why does he say this? He says, Agrippa says, and the panther, which is said to have a spot on her shoulder like the moon, increasing into roundness and having horns that bend inwards. So the footnote, this is Pliny the Elder, writing in the 1st century. Pliny the Elder in the 1st century, his Historia Naturalis, or Natural History. It says here, the panther. So this is Pliny the Elder. It is said by some that the panther has on the shoulder a spot which bears the form of the moon, and that like it regularly increases to full and then diminishes to a crescent. So even though this may sound absurd to our modern ears, this is animal mythology, but Agrippa's not making it up about the panther having a spot on her shoulder. He's quoting from Pliny the Elder in the 1st century. So, Lunary also are swine or pigs, hinds, that's female deer, goats, and all animals whatsoever that observe and imitate the motion of the moon, as the baboon and panther, which is said to have a spot on her shoulder like the moon, increasing into a roundness, and having horns that bend inwards. Cats, felines. For Agrippa, cats in general are lunar, which makes sense. Cats are lunar for Agrippa, so cats are associated with the moon. Cats also are lunar, whose eyes become greater or less, according to the course of the moon. And those things which are of like nature as menstrual blood. So cats are associated with the moon, cats, and menstrual blood. Agrippa often mentions menstrual blood with the moon. Actually, if we go to chapter, I think it's 44, where he talks about making incenses of the planets, he mentions that menstrual blood could be added to a lunar incense. But anyways, so he often associates menstrual blood with the moon, Agrippa does. As menstrual blood, of which are made wonderful and strange things by magicians. The civet cat, Now, it's actually the hyena. Pliny, again, he's quoting Pliny the Elder in the 1st century, says that the civet cat changes her sex. And there's a quote that shows that. But anyways, and the hyena, I meant the hyena. The civet cat or hyena is what he means to say. But he's quoting Pliny the Elder, also changing her sex, being obnoxious to diverse sorceries, and all animals that live in water as well as on land, as otters, and such as prey upon fish. So later on in this chapter, Agrippa will say like frogs, turtles. So frogs, turtles, tortoises, birds that are associated with water like geese, like a goose or a duck. So things that are connected to water like otters or otters, beavers. He doesn't say beavers, but he says those animals that live in water and on land. And all animals, he says all animals that live in the water as well as on land. So like frogs, otters, things like that. As otters and such as prey upon fish. Also all monstrous beasts, such as without any manifest seed, are equivocally generated as mice, which sometimes are generated by coition, sometimes by the putrefaction of the earth. Amongst fowl, and that is a medieval belief, but there's actually a footnote here that talks about that. From Horapollo. Amongst fowl, geese, ducks, didappers, also called dabchick. It's a small water diving bird. Like the didapper, it dives underwater to catch fish. So watery fowl. Amongst fowl, geese, ducks, didappers, and all kinds of watery fowl or birds, as prey upon fish and the heron. And those that are equivocally produced, as wasps of the carcasses of horses, bees of the putrefaction of cows, small flies of putrefied wine, and beetles of the flesh of asses, which is an ancient belief, which we know now is not actually true, but it's part of the mythology, the lore. And here he talks about the two-horned beetle. But most lunar of all is the two-horned beetle, horned after the manner of a bull. Think of Taurus, the moon's exalted in Taurus. The two-horned beetle, horned after the manner of a bull, which digs under cow dung, and there remains for the space of 28 days, in which time the moon measures the whole zodiac, and in the 29th day, when it thinks there will be a conjunction of their brightness, or the new moon, it opens the dung and casts it into water, from whence come beetles. Now, he's actually quoting from Horapollo in the 5th century. He says the same thing. If you read the footnote, Horapollo talks about the beetle doing this, so it's pretty interesting. Amongst fish, these are lunary. Alaris is sea catfish, or the sea cat. It's a type of catfish that lives in the ocean. So the alaris, that's a real fish. It's a catfish that lives in the sea. Amongst fish, these are lunary. Alaris, whose eyes are changed according to the course of the moon, and whatsoever observe the motion of the moon, as the tortoise, the echinus, there's the remora again that stops ships, the echinus, the crab. Think of Cancer. Not only is the crab connected with the ocean governed by the moon, but think of Cancer. So the crab, oysters, cockles. Cockles are a type of, it's like a clam, or a type of mussel that people eat. It's like a clam. Cockles and frogs. So the crab, oysters are lunar, the oyster, cockles and frogs. So those are the things I have just read here, chapter 24 of the 3 books of occult philosophy, chapter 24, what things are lunar. So we're working through the 7 sacred planets in these videos, And these videos, again, they're intended to be used for reference. So people can go to whatever chapter or just skim through my Agrippa playlist and read along with me. So it's good to imbue yourself with this knowledge. A practice that I've picked up once again, I've been doing it for like 3 weeks now, 2 or 3 weeks. I picked it up again, is every day read the chapter on the planet and what things are under it of the planet that rules the day. Like today is Monday. I read chapter 24 on what things are lunary. On a Sunday, read chapter 23, what things are solar. On a Saturday, read chapter 25, what things are associated with Saturn. On a Thursday, read chapter 26 on Jupiter. So every day, the planet that governs the day, go through the correspondences of Agrippa. Ideally, these should be memorized. We need to memorize these associations. We're imbuing ourselves with Agrippa. The more we read Agrippa, the more we're imbuing ourselves with this classical magic type of mindset and these correspondences, which again, many of them come from late antiquity. So, like we have the Greek magical papyri, but Agrippa, interestingly, a lot of times he's quoting Greek and Roman authors from late antiquity. So Agrippa is also getting us to peer into that. We have to understand that people like Agrippa believed in things like the gold, silver, bronze, and iron ages, that over time there is a loss of knowledge. So for them, it was very much about bringing back this ancient wisdom. Once again, I'm going to post this on YouTube, and it's on my Facebook. Once again, if you're on my YouTube, go to my Facebook. I recommend people follow me there. I've reached the 5,000 friends, but if you hit follow, it's the same thing. All my stuff is public, so you can see all my stuff. If you hit follow on Facebook, you can catch my lives, because that's where I do my lives. And pinned to the top of my Facebook, there's a pinned message that has a link to my YouTube channel and to my Agrippa playlist and my Shim Angel playlist for reference. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see y'all in the next video. Alright, I'll see y'all in the next video. Have a great day, y'all.